I want to switch gears and talk about another area of science briefly. We're not going to have the same level of discussion. But if you turn your handout to F, we're now going to talk about something called neural engineering. And I'd just like to have you do the same exercise, which is check the box if you know what neural engineering is. Regardless of whether you know what it is or not, below that, what are the ideas, images, words that come to your mind? And then at the bottom, if you feel like you could write a description of it, go ahead. If you feel like I really don't know enough, you can just put a question mark. Has anyone heard of this before?
I haven't.
No?
I have, but it was like 2 years ago, but I think it has to do with working within the brain.
Okay. And did you raise your hand? You've heard of it?
I mean, I've heard it. I've heard the term, and I thought it had. Did we say what we think it has to do with?
Sure,
I thought it had to do with like synapses and neurotransmitters and things like increasing cognitive functioning, things like that.
Okay.
A lot of psychiatric stuff too, I'm sure.
What are the ideas, words, phrases, kind of what was in your thought bubble when you heard the term neural engineering? Anyone?
Well, I guess because we just got off of the synthetic topic, I just was picturing, replacing something in your brain, maybe that isn't working properly, or to make your brain think certain ways.
Okay.
I almost thought of something synthetic, like if you have a synthetic arm, being able to connect that and actually feel like it's instinctive of your arm, you get like force feedback and things like that, so it could feel like you actually have an arm again, and those kinds of technologies.
Okay.
Some way of controlling what our brain's saying to the rest of the body. I mean, an example would be like last few years, well, I don't know if the last few years, but like what we hear about restless leg syndrome, and they say that's neurological engineering, but at nighttime, your legs will start to do certain things. And I'm thinking with the engineering, the brain, they could make it the switch off, saying don't make your leg quiver.
Okay.
That kind of thing.
Other things people thought of?
I think of helping neurological disorders, epilepsy, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, things like that, if they can figure out a way to stop degradation of neurons and synapses, and even going back to neurotransmitters, it might help depression and long-term things like that.
I just think it's going to be a deep research for that. You can, even though it says engineering, there's not too much you can do with the brain. I mean, you can't really disturb it, but you can find out, like you said, what causes a stroke. Trying to find out what that is and what causes Alzheimer's.
Okay. Okay. So what I want you to do now is turn your hand out. Before we read this, before you read it, neural engineering, do you think positive, negative? I don't know enough to have any. I mean, is your general kind of gut instinct to be optimistic about that, or be concerned?
I think
Positive.
Positive. Okay. Anyone say it concerns me? Liz does? Okay. That's all right. No, it's no right or wrong answer.
One in every
So, what is neural engineering? Neural engineering is the use of engineering and brain science to build devices that restore or improve human functioning. Neural engineering is an emerging field which combines the science of the brain and nervous system with the principles of engineering in order to build devices to substitute or assist with human functioning. Devices may sense how the brain or nerves are working and communicate this information, or they may stimulate the brain or nerves to work in certain ways. Some devices are worn on the outside of the body, and some are implanted in or near the brain or nerves. Most devices are designed to help people who've lost some function due to brain or nerve damage. For instance, people who've lost partial functioning of an arm or leg may have devices that stimulate the brain or spinal nerves to help restore function. Or people who've lost all function of arms or legs may have devices that sense brain or nerve signals and use this information to control other devices like a computer cursor or a robotic hand. So, what are your reactions to that?
Why would you not want it?
Why would you not want it?
I mean, why would you not? I mean, if somebody has a car accident or is in the military, and why would you not want them to have this? I think it's great. I think it sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Isn't there a lot of study already? I mean, there's already, genetic biology for using it from the brain to stimulate. Because I tell you this, my mother had a stroke in October, right? And it's taken her 6 months to a year, so the doctor said to get back. And I see the progression. You can look in somebody's eyes, either far away, or if they're right here, I'll say, Mommy, do you understand me? So, is that what they're talking about, to try to stimulate the brain, to bring it back, in terms of having her come back sooner, or anybody who has a stroke? Because it affected her speech.
Well, if I don't know to the degree that it would deal with speech as
But
well,
what
it's
are
saying...
they going to do? I mean, it's already happening, but they're taking it a notch
So
higher.
they're saying if there is, that you can't, your brain is no longer sort of talking to, your arm, for instance.
Yeah.
There's the ability to maybe implant a device that allows it to talk to the arm, and then it can function again. Because it was no longer, the signals were being interrupted from the brain.
Yes, yes.
So that's one example. But
And I already know with
I saw-
Parkinson's, they have a thing where they operate right on the brain, and it helps the person.
So what are just
Uncle
people's
has that.
reactions? I mean, Becky said, who wouldn't want this?
After reading this, I will go back. Because if it's a device, if it's something like not an organism that a man created, then I think it's fine. I think it's great. Who wouldn't want it? It's not going to hurt anything. And if it does hurt you, you've already kind of like decided whether or not you're willing to take that risk. You kind of know that there's a risk to it. You're not looking at like some crazy Frankenstein.
Something that's being introduced to a closed system instead of an open
Exactly.
system, which
Thank
is
you.
our last
Thank
thing.
you.
Yeah.
I can't see how it would be misused.
Yeah.
Right.
Is there a video of that?
No, sorry.
I'm
You
just
could
kind
also-
of curious at what they're doing.
You could also choose to use it or not use it. If you decide that it has some kind of negative effect, like,
Exactly.
oh, well, I can get feelings in my finger now, but I'm having terrible dreams at night because of it, you could say, you know what, it's not worth it to me, and you could consciously choose not to do it. When you're injecting yourself with something, in the other scenario, there's no turning back from that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, I personally saw somebody who had like one of these boxes. Somebody got like he was, I'm pretty sure he was paralyzed in a training in the military in Paris Island. I saw this guy, and he had this like box that was like attached to like his spine because he got injured and he couldn't use his legs anymore. But so they were like using something, like I don't know, I just remember
To
seeing-
stimulate his brain to
Yeah,
move
I
his
don't know. It
arms.
was just like a box that was like one of his. It was like, I don't know. It was just
That's why I said
some
they're doing-
futuristic thing. I was like, what the hell is that? And somebody told me that he got injured here, and it's like some experimental thing or whatever. And he was there trying to like recuperate, and they were trying to see if he
you
could
turn to the
stimulate his
next
nerves
page,
again.
it gives you 2 examples. You don't have to write anything down, but let's read case 1. You can read it, and then we'll talk about it. Why don't you just read both of them, and then we'll talk about it. So what are people's reactions to this? You've gotten a little more information to potential applications here. What are you thinking more?
It's impressive.
It's impressive?
Yeah. I mean, just that technology that we're at that point is insane. Yeah, I don't know, just impressed.
Allows people to have more independence instead of relying on somebody else to, wait on you hand and foot because you have a disability. So I think alleviates some pressure on both ends.
Okay. Barbara, what's your reaction?
I would be in agreement because it's an individual choice.
Okay. Okay. Other reactions to this? I mean, is this super exciting? Is it not? Do you have concerns, or are you hopeful?
Hopeful.
I think it's amazing. I mean, it's just like that's the beautiful stuff that humanity can bring to help people to be able to do things like that. That's what it's all about, right? Science is supposed to be all about helping
Sounds
people.
really cool and promising and optimistic.
They kind of have already done something like this. You see that thing on TV? The guy, like it's you like robotic legs, like these things that go around your legs, so that paraplegic people can walk now. you use your hands and like powers. If the guy who invented that technology was quadriplegic and he could never use it himself,
Oh,
but he invented that.
wow.
You know what I mean? It was an Israeli scientist that watched this
In the,
documentary on it.
Sorry,
in
John,
the
what were you
20s, 30s, and 40s, people thought lobotomies were really cool too.
Or like what?
Cool.
Oh, cool.
So what are you saying?
I think there could be downfalls to everything technology has to offer. I mean, people always see the good in things, but there are also negatives, I think, that need to be researched and really thought out before they're implemented and exercised in such a way that, you always see the good, but like I said, 20s, 30s, and 40s, people thought lobotomies were really cool, but then we realized, hey, it's probably not good to cut off part of a person's brain.
You could go even, oh, sorry, if you want to go.
No,
You could even go very sci-fi as a negative down the road. Like there's this game called Metal Gear you play, and they have nanomachine systems that link soldiers' minds essentially together so they can share one mind essentially on a battlefield. But that's part of a system that is easily controlled, and then the system is controlled by not a malevolent force, and then it controls the soldiers on the battlefield for whatever reason. That's a very long-term sci-fi possibility, but you never know. Yeah.
True. My thing was for case one, and just seeing it from my mother. Now, if she can't talk, and the brain and the body can work together here, but how deep? It would depend on how deep that person was affected in their trauma. Say a car accident person, and they're traumatized, so the brain isn't functioning at all. And if it is functioning, maybe they went back to their childhood. So it's different scenarios.
I don't know enough, but I mean, it's about getting the signal from your brain to a part of your body where the path has been disrupted and it can no longer get there. If there's not functioning in the brain, I think that's probably a different issue and beyond the scope of.
So isn't that what they're trying to do here? I mean, this is what they're trying to do.
They're trying to connect the signals in the brain to the part of the body that normally your nerves would, you say you're going to take a drink of water, you do it.
Right.
But because there's a disruption from the brain to your hand doesn't move. And this is sort of restoring that connection in a way. It's actually using wireless technology to send the signal from your brain to your hand. Any concerns about wireless technology?
The only malicious thing I could see is somebody like hacking into the wireless system and making me take a bunch of drinks of water so that I don't want. Yeah, but I mean, I feel like, we laugh and I know it's a possibility, but I still feel like I would rather slap myself 100 times than be able to take a drink of water for myself. I don't know who's going to hack into some handicapped person's.
It could be used
I'm
for
sure for
military.
military use maybe, but
Injuring.
for civilian.
I just don't know how it would work. It sounds great and everything, but the brain is very temperamental, and I just don't know how they're going to have this work.
Okay.
The only way it can work through is the nervous system. That's it. But the brain, if somebody's brain dead, they're brain dead. They can't bring that back.
You can't.
I don't think
it's
they're
not
trying.
gonna work,
I don't think
it's not gonna
they're
work
trying
for
to
everybody. It's
Yeah.
just going to be able to work
This
for
is for people
where
who
they
have
can-
essentially a disability.
Yeah.
That means that their legs are no longer functioning,
Yeah.
or maybe they lost their legs, and so they have a prosthetic limb. This connects from the brain to their.
To that. So is that possible?
Yeah.
Liz?
If that's what it's used for, I think it's wonderful. But look at Hitler. If he had this type of technology, he would have, drugged all the soldiers and put this thing in their brain and made them do certain things. Not that you necessarily need to. He made them do it without that. But I agree. This is less scary than the other somehow, but I do think that it could be used in a bad way as well.
Becky?
I've been able to watch my uncle with Parkinson's, and he was really shaky and could hardly live by himself, and that's when he had the electrodes put in, and they calibrated it just right, and it just made all the difference in his quality of life. It was phenomenal.
Did he stop shaking?
He went through a period where I can't say he stopped shaking, but it started coming back. and he thought it wasn't working anymore, and you know what had happened? The batteries had run low. So he was always like, I ran out of batteries. So they had to, like, you know, go in and fix it or whatever, but it's just made, I mean, he's had years of quality that he would not have had otherwise.
Wow.
So, just to close up, and if you could pass up your blue sheets to me. You guys have been really great about thinking through these issues and having a good dialogue and discussion with different points of view around the table. Just sort of overall, how do you feel about neural engineering based on just a little bit of information I've given you?
Good.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah, me too. It's a new frontier.
It needs to be definitely understood that technology, no one ever goes back from technology, and no one ever just uses it for one thing. So
Yeah.
it's just once that technology is created, it's like the internet, no one could predict that that would start with AOL and then end up with leading to like an Arab Spring, like, you know, just things like that. You can't predict what's going to happen. So it's just always to keep aware of.
If it's properly implemented and guidelines are there and watchdogs other than themselves or the government, I think all of them need to be on it or to watch it, you know, and follow the guidelines so it won't get into the wrong person's hands.
Great. You guys have been fantastic. If you head out to the